for joining me today on this broadcast. We have a lot to talk about with everything that's been going on. I think the biggest thing to start off with is today Americans woke up to a huge surprise, and that was Vice President Biden taking over both Georgia and Pennsylvania in the election. Right now, Biden is currently ahead just by a few thousand votes in Georgia. How does Olga? Can you tell me a little bit about what you think about this?
I mean, I think it is great news. I think the world is watching very carefully, and I think that Biden's lead is going to only grow in Pennsylvania. Georgia, I mean, it is great, and shout out to Stacey Abrams, who has been working on the ground for years, and who got the vote out. So I think it's amazing. It's definitely we're heading in the right direction.
Peter, was this a surprise for you, or how did you feel about this?
I think we had some sense that the remaining votes out there, particularly with those cast, through either mail-in or drop-off, those that were not in-person votes were likely to, skew towards Democratic. So this was not necessarily a surprise. And frankly, it's still pretty tight here, although, what we've been told is that it's likely to continue to trend Democratic for the remaining counts in those two states. But again, it's no finality to this whole ordeal yet. It's certainly been a stressful week for a lot of people here, on all sides of the spectrum, just wanting some finality to this. So, boy.
I think one important thing to note for everyone listening in is that Georgia, for almost 30 years, has always been a Republican key state. People didn't ever have to think about Georgia going blue. So this is one of the this is the most important time that we see that it actually could be flipping. President Obama and previous presidents failed to get this state to flip after spending so much time campaigning and trying to get the people to go blue. And it looks like Vice President Biden is the one that might be able to do it. Turning our attention to Pennsylvania now, where Vice President Biden was very far behind in the election, ended up coming up and now is ahead of Donald Trump. I think this was an amazing feat, and he's still far ahead. But it seems like the Republican community today has reacted with a lot of protests and demonstrations, especially outside the Capitol, against the vice president getting ahead in the election. What do you think about their reaction, Olga?
I mean, we have a president who for 4 years has fed red meat to his base, has stirred divisions in the country, has basically knocked all our norms, torn them apart, So the fact that this is happening it was very predictable. He's been priming his base for this, for this event for years. And I mean, you have his son and you have all his, inner circle coming out, calling for war, and we're in a very dangerous place, because with Biden winning, well, it looks like he will be winning the presidency and he's, ahead everywhere. We still have a big problem. I mean, we woke up with half of the country who basically is supporting Trump after everything he's done, whether it be aligning himself, with despots and supporting horrific regimes that America normally, would never, whether it be, pushing away our allies that we've had since post-World War II, or whether it be something domestic like, under his watch having almost 250,000 Americans dying, and he doesn't have a plan. He never had a plan, and now he's more than willing to let another million die with his herd immunity. And that, to me, I mean, I'm so happy because, with Biden winning, we can start moving and healing the country. But we have a lot of work to do. I mean, the fact that half of the country supports this and lives in their own reality. That's the problem, because it's like there are two separate realities right now. There's our reality, which is facts and based on science, and then there is their reality based on conspiracies, and I mean, no matter how crazy the conspiracies are, and a lot of these conspiracies are also being generated from overseas to, cause the division. So back to what's happening across the country. I mean, this is something he's been doing during all summer when he was campaigning. His rallies are frightening because he has been, telling people that like a month or two before election, people they're gonna steal the election from me. We're gonna have to defend the country. They are un-American. They're committing treason. So this is where we are, and I honestly thought it would be a lot worse. I know the FBI has been, monitoring and preparing for this whole year. So for now, I think, despite the protests, I think it's much better than what was anticipated. But we still have, a few months left, so we'll see.
Talking about is the real struggle that's going on within America tonight. Peter, would you like to talk a little bit about what you believe the real struggle is and what Americans have to face going throughout this election and entering whoever wins this election, what the struggle will have to be from here on out?
Well, I think the real struggle is this, mass sense of distrust that the Trump administration and Trump himself primarily, through Twitter, through other outlets, has been trying to sow among the general public. The idea that, our democratic system is somehow flawed and that there is cheating involved here on a mass scale is just simply not true. And there's no evidence for it. The lawsuits that the Trump administration has filed in states over the last 48 hours have by and large been thrown out because there's no evidence for these claims whatsoever. Yet, people are taking up arms literally and going and, really holing up outside the Arizona voting center, for example, where the ballots are being counted. And I can't imagine what the poll workers must be going through and the ballot counters, knowing that there are armed people right outside the door there. This is totally unprecedented, and people need to realize that this is a danger to our sense of public decency, and it's not American, frankly. There's a certain amount of respect for the democratic process that people need to have and maintain here, and I think that it's been undermined deeply by Trump, not just in the last week or so, but over the last years, really. Distrust of the media, distrust of all of the experts and scientists, of all of the norms and all of the different, official sort of, bastions of power, right? That he's really been trying to counter and undermine since he was running, drain the swamp, etc. Well, now he is the swamp, and now nobody has any respect for, scientists, and we have a pandemic that's killed hundreds of thousands of people because we don't have basic policies that follow the recommendations of scientists, and it's just, anyway, it's shocking.
I want to quickly go to the chat. Brett Walker posts, I heard on MSNBC that some vote counters have had to be escorted out by police to their cars. And this is completely true. I know especially tonight in Nevada, ABC reported that all the counters will be escorted to their cars by police to protect them from protesters and other people in the situation that it could possibly get violent. I think this is a really heated issue and topic that's going on for the Republican side. And I think, unfortunately, the president is not really trying to unite the people. I think that this is a situation where, like what Vice President Biden did just in his previous speech he gave, telling all Democrats that even moving forward, we're all Americans. We need to be united and we need to stick together through this. They're still your neighbors, they're still your friends, they're still your family. I think one thing I wanted to mention is that the current election that's going on in Pennsylvania, as of right now, a lot of people who think that it's in the bag for the Democratic side, you should hold up just a little bit. There's still approximately 100,000 ballots that need to be counted, even though the majority of them are expected to be for Biden. However, there is a little bit of a wrinkle within that, specifically being about there's 100,000 provisional ballots that have left to be counted. So traditionally, these provisional ballots normally go towards blue. However, though, with the current trend of President Trump and the election that's been going on, it's been a 3-to-1 ratio that the provisional ballots have been going towards President Trump. Specifically, though, with this trend, this is from mostly red counties. So for those who think that the Pennsylvania election is in the bag and it's now completely blue, I would just hold off for a second and continue to watch, because I think we still will. There'll still be news going on. I think one of the biggest things we should be talking about is the Hunter Biden investigation. I believe we had a comment here in the chat. Peter, do you see the chat comment?
I do, yeah. Getting a question from Joella 2020. Why isn't the Hunter investigation being brought up? I think it is worth being brought up and addressing why it was not covered in the mainstream media. The Wall Street Journal, which tends to lean conservative, for example, didn't cover it. This New York Post article, was fraught with issues and problems. And there's a reason why there was no byline to it, because nobody wanted to own up to that. Frankly, it was shoddily reported. There was not credible evidence, frankly, in the end, for any malfeasance or corruption. Olga, perhaps you want to jump in here as well from your perspective on this.
Well, my perspective, I first and foremost, I never thought that I would see Russian intelligence, I hate call it agents and people associated with Russian organized crime in Ukraine in American news. Like, I never thought I'd see their names except maybe with, indictments. With that said, the people involved who were working with Rudy Giuliani, they have for decades, they've been working with Russian intelligence. They are pro-Russian Ukrainians who, for that you would have to get to know the internal politics of Ukraine, but they have been working with Russian intelligence, to divide Ukraine. And a few of them have prior history with, Donald Trump, with Rudy Giuliani via business dealings or attempted business dealings before even presidency. So the information that they were providing was basically being fed by Russian intelligence. And with Russian intelligence, they are known, they use the same exact tactics. They will hack emails, then they will fabricate some information. One of the famous Biden Poroshenko tapes was provided by a Ukrainian who was a fugitive. He was charged in Ukraine, and right now he's in Europe hiding out. So this information just came from very bad sources. And with that said, with everybody who was pushing this information, they are doing the service of what Russian intelligence wants, which is taking a conspiracy and pushing it out to the public. The fact that it got into our government and into U.S. Senate with Ron Johnson, it's incredible. It's something that should have never came to that. And again, we were at a point where people, in order to keep Trump in power, and I guess for their own personal reasons, chose to amplify Russian disinformation, versus protecting America from an attack from Russia. So that's where we are, and that's why it was not addressed, and covered, because the whole thing, even with the laptop story fell apart. In Ukraine, there's another laptop that came up, and it's like everyone is finding a Hunter Biden laptop. And it is the duty of our media to fact check and to, regardless where the corruption is and from whom, it has to be fact-checked. It has to be, the information needs to be provided from credible sources, and this just wasn't.
You
Well
know,
said.
so yeah, well said, Olga. One thing I want to ask about is currently the president, or sorry, the president is losing by over 4 million votes for the popular vote in the election. That is a lot, way more than what Klan lost or won by, I guess I should say, in the popular vote. But what does that mean for America, and what does that mean for the relationship moving on towards the Russian-American relationship in the situation that that Biden does win the presidency?
Well, the Kremlin, it became evident that Biden is on a path to winning, probably last month. I mean, they were already, they monitor our situation, our internals. They started having meetings and figuring out a strategy for, a potential Biden presidency. And it's been, becoming very clear as the days go on that Biden will have the presidency. With that said, I mean, Russia temporarily won in 2016 as a short-term strategy because, I mean, they did huge damage to our country. They divided us. We can't have, normal conversation without, having, even when presented with facts, without disagreeing. But long term, I mean, now they're beginning to realize America reunited with her allies, and especially with Putin's interference, not only here, but what's happening in Belarus. For instance, Putin has been propping up Lukashenko, and the European Union has been sanctioning Lukashenko and his inner circle, but America has been staying quiet. Normally, America is supposed to be with our allies, and we're supposed to put together a joint statement, against human rights crimes. So with that said, the Kremlin is definitely, they're scrambling to figure out a strategy. Yesterday, what I did want to address there is a political scientist in Russia who is known to work with Russian intelligence services and feed their information. I mean, he's been doing it for decades. Normally, he does it more for internal reasons, to monitor dissent within and to see if there are any power moves surrounding Putin, and kind of, root out anything that's happening. But yesterday, he placed an ad. I mean, and it's by yesterday, it was already becoming clear that Biden was getting closer and closer to the presidency. He placed an ad in a British outlet, basically saying that Putin has Parkinson's. This time, every time he's been saying that Putin is ill for over a decade. This time, it's Parkinson's, and that Putin will be stepping down. The strategy was meant for a Western audience. One, because of the use of a Western outlet, which then eventually from this British outlet went to New York Post, and I had to, spend hours debunking it on Twitter. And two, they're trying to show that Putin is, weaker, in order for, if Biden does come in, and if we do, sanction them heavily and start working with our allies to, kind of give the impression like, oh, well, Putin's not an issue anymore because he's on his way out. He's very sick and whatnot. So it's very interesting. I mean, they're definitely worried about it. As they should be, because they've, divided even in Europe. They've divided Britain and all the countries in Europe, and within basically everything we're seeing here is happening in every single country in Europe. It's part of their long-term strategy of weakening the West and weakening democracy. And even with what you mentioned about protests, and what Trump is doing, it is so dangerous because every single word that is coming out of his mouth is being repeated on Russian state media. And I monitor Russian state media, daily. And they are basically showing, because Russia has always been anti-democracy, and they are using Trump, an American president, as an example of why democracy fails and it doesn't work. And I mean, their coverage of our election is just, it's horrific, and it's so damaging for our image. That's why I like, we need to hopefully, as when all the votes are counted, wrap it up and declare Biden the winner if he is the rightful winner, and then start moving forward. Because right now, this drawn out period and it's not, I mean, I monitor Russia, but I assume it's the same in Iran and North Korea and every other country, who who wants to see us weakened. No, no. Again, I monitor Russia my whole life. If you read their media, I think literally every month or two, we are nuking them. This is like going back to the 1950s, like post World War II. So they use that as a way to keep, their citizens to paint Americans as bad, to have more control over their citizens. They always have to have, this invisible enemy. They're very known for attacking our CIA, our FBI, our, agencies. So there's no truth. I mean, this is just empty threats. No one is going to, Putin would not cross the line of launching a physical war. And his war, physically, they can't even survive a physical war with America. I mean, between us and NATO, we can definitely, eliminate that threat very easily. And they never aim to have physical wars because they can't afford it. Their military isn't as advanced as ours. That is why they spend so much time since, again, this goes back to 80 years of disinformation and focusing and financing and recruiting people in the States, or United States or Europe, and running a hybrid warfare where they've done more damage to America by hijacking American psyche than they ever would if they launched a bomb at us. Because, if they went to war, then there would be a possibility the Americans would unite versus a common enemy. But here, the fact that they helped, they didn't split us because, the divisions were there, but they amplified it and they knew what to target and how to target it. So with that, I think, they'll just continue what they do, the disinformation. Even with this election, I've been monitoring the conspiracies coming out, and I mean, I see it like it originates from Russia and then moves into the far right circles and then ends up with, Donald Trump or Roger Stone or, one of the people surrounding Trump. So they'll continue with the conspiracies, they'll continue causing division, and that's it. No war.
Right. I mean, I think one of the things that you touched upon that I really want to revisit, Olga, is the visibility and kind of the image of the U.S. During this really fraught election process has been eroded. I mean, it is a train wreck, honestly, happening, in front of the world's eyes here. Everyone that I've talked to, for my work, I speak with journalists from all over the world here on HAPS. Full transparency, I am head of the journalism community. We speak with journalists from all across the political spectrum from all across the world here. And by and large, especially those who are based abroad outside the U.S., people have said, what is happening there? It's hard to recognize this bastion of democracy right now when there's so much happening that looks just like Nigeria, or looks just like countries which are not particularly open to free expression or speech or free and open elections. And it's really worrisome, frankly, and it's going to take a very long time to repair that image again, and a lot of intentional and remedial work on the part of the next administration, with these international institutions, with our partners individually. I mean, it's going to be a long rebuilding process.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and I mean, it's so damaging. I can't even emphasize enough how damaging it is, because for us, we're all glued watching the counts come in, and of course, it's disgusting to see, what Trump is saying, and it's almost like, if you have something in your own household and you kind of like get used to it, like we're used to this abuse Trump has, unleashed on us over the past 4 years, and the separation and basically throwing all the norms out. But then you realize, the world is watching. And I mean, we have spent decades helping countries, establish democracies. Every time there are crackdowns, we have always come out strong and sided, with the protesters against human rights crimes. And I mean, it's just the damage. Who will take us seriously at this point? The fact that, and again, the fact that, yes, Trump was a 4-year president, and we are going to move forward. But the fact is that we got to the point that America did come to that point of electing someone like him, and people are still supporting him 4 years later and not, rebuking him strongly. Because, like I said, half of the country still voted for him. And, of course, Biden got the most amount of votes, and he's, with popular votes. But, I mean, really, with everything that Trump has done, how he endangered our country, our national security, our citizens, he shouldn't even have gotten 20 million votes. I mean, I don't know who voted. But it's dangerous. It's dangerous on the world stage. I mean, and we're just going to have to start restoring our credibility. And Biden has a lot of work to do. I mean, he's going to have a lot of work to do domestically and, on the world stage. Because right now, I mean, if Erdogan, for instance, killed the journalist, or Putin tries to assassinate someone, who are we to say now, what you're doing is wrong? And Russia will turn around and say, well, look at what you did, So it definitely, it's going to be tough for us, but we'll get through it. I mean, we will, and we just need to get on the right track. Once we get on the right track, we'll earn our place back in the world. We'll rebuild our relationships with our allies that we abandoned. We'll have to, going forward, keep to our word, unlike what happened in Syria, where we betrayed, the Kurds. And we're going to have to stand up for, human rights and stand up for democracy and start building that example again, It'll take time. I saw somebody did ask why the Republican Party specifically got taken by Russia or favorable to Russia. I mean, it's pre-Trump. They were always known to be hawkish on Russia, but then when I started doing research and looking into what is happening in 2015 with Trump and Russia, I came across a lot of deals and relationships that they have had with Russia. So they're sympathy and their assistance to the Kremlin is not, it's now more prevalent because of Trump, because now they have to, to defend him, they have to basically, but it goes past that. And a lot of it has to do, I mean, it's another topic, but a lot of it has to do with the lobbying that we have allowed the accountants, the lawyers, to represent Putin's inner circle. And it kind of, this set the stage for this. So this has been in the making for decades. Trump was just a perfect, like it was a perfect storm with his election in 2016.
Oh, Marco, I can't hear you. Can you hear him, Olga?
Oh, sorry
No.
about that. Can you hear me now?
Now I can.
There we go. Sorry about that. Olga, sorry, I wanted to ask you another question. Sorry about keep asking you questions here. I just want to use this time wisely. So, really quickly, I wanted to ask you about the Russian influence in this election and how effective it was compared to 4 years ago, and the impact it had on Americans now and again in the previous election.
The previous election, it was definitely more successful because people here were unaware of what was happening. So people like everybody here was taken by surprise. Even though the tactics, like I said, have been the same. What they've been doing this in Ukraine, like we were the guinea pigs, for them before they started testing it out on the West. This time, I mean, they're successful as far as look where we are. We have a president on the, using our White House to basically undermine our democracy, our elections, our voting system, and whatnot. But as far as, I mean, what kind of slowed them down a lot was, I think, the transparency that came from our intelligence agencies and our law enforcement, because this time, different from 2016, as they saw, like for instance, going back to Hunter Biden, they knew that Hunter Biden is working with Russian intelligence. I mean, this is something that every intel agency should know for decades. It's nothing new. But they decided to come out to the public with it. They knew that Telizhenko was working with Russian intelligence, so they decided to ban his visa and alert the public that his visa is banned. They knew that Russian hackers were attempting to get into our hospital systems and they actually did get into two servers, and they were probing our servers, and they got into multiple servers, but they exfiltrated information out of two servers. So they came out to the public with a statement about that. So I think our intelligence being very upfront with Americans as it was happening helped a lot. And it also put Russia on notice that we're watching you. We know you're in our system. We know what you're doing, back up. So we'll see the damage. I mean, it's still yet to see, but they're still continuing. Like I said, even with post election, they're fueling a lot of the conspiracies we're seeing, whether it be Sharpie Gate or whether it be this actually was funny. People multiple people were posting basically like, that's it, I'm ready, I'm leaving America, it's kind of a banana republic, whatever. And I'm moving to England, I'm moving to Mexico, I'm moving here, I'm moving there, to kind of undermine what US is. But this is bots. And one actually forgot to even take out, like he put the script, but he forgot to take out Phil Zinn. So basically, he just like copied and pasted the script without, saying what country or filling in the blanks. So, I mean, they're watching very carefully, and they are doing everything, whether it be the protest on the ground, whether it be, people worrying about the count. These how Trump said these illegal ballots, which I don't know what illegal ballots are, but and they're using all of that and they're amplifying. So I mean, it's happening, as we speak. Count every vote. Oh, mine is count every vote and let our democracy work. Like we're not. I mean, we're all anxious. Anxious. We're not sleeping. I mean, everybody's like monitoring, these results trickling in very, very painfully slowly. But let it work. I mean, we have to show the world we're not on Trump's schedule. We're not on Biden's schedule. We're not on the American people's schedule. We're not on network schedule. Americans went, they cast their vote. They took the time to express, who the next leader of America should be. And every single vote should be heard. And our process should continue as long as it continues. And then when we have a definitive winner, he will be announced, and that's it. And then from there, my only caution going forward is we're going to have, the next few months is going to be challenging with Trump during the lame duck. But other than that, we just have to let the process work. This is what makes democracy good. The votes are not pre-written like in Russia or in Belarus. People here come and vote, and their voice should be heard.